Hoping my internet doesn't come back up. Oh my. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's presentation. My name is Marissa, an attorney with Legal Aid of North Carolina's Helpline. Today, we have Trina Bender presenting for us. If you are unfamiliar with the format of this event, first, Trina is going to review a PowerPoint presentation. At the end of the presentation, we will have a question and answer session. If at any point during the presentation you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A box on Zoom or the comments section on Facebook. We'll review all questions put in the chat boxes during the Q&A session at the end. Please remember that this is a public forum and Legal Aid is not representing you at this time. Trina will go over this in more detail, but please remember to keep your questions as general as possible, as we cannot provide any legal advice specific to your individual situation. The session will end when there are no more questions, and regardless of where we are, we will have a hard stop at 4:30 p.m. With all that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Trina to get us started.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, like Marissa just said, my name is Trina Bender. I am a staff attorney here at Legal Aid. I work in the Second Chance Department doing criminal record expunctions and driver's license restoration. As Marissa said, I do want to remind you guys, though I am an attorney, I am not your attorney, and we are not representing you at this time. I am going to go over a presentation and give y'all some general information about expunctions, and I'm more than happy to answer questions at the end, but do please keep those questions general, as it's impossible for me to analyze your particular situation because I will not have all the information. If the questions are too specific, I may not be able to answer them. So please do keep that in mind. And on that, I am going to start, and here we go. All right, first of all, let me just tell you guys a little bit about Legal Aid of North Carolina. We are a statewide nonprofit law firm. We provide free legal services for civil matters and criminal expunctions to low-income people. And our goal is to ensure equal access to justice and remove legal barriers to economic opportunity. As you know, you're listening to our Listen and Learn about criminal record expunctions, but we do offer Listen and Learn presentations through our website and Facebook on several different topics, including wills, advanced directives, HCPOA. We do benefits Listen and Learns about Social Security, disability, food stamps, otherwise known as SNAP, and Medicaid. We can answer we have a Listen and Learn about simple questions about family law, simple divorce, child custody, and we have a Listen and Learn concerning tenant rights. And you can sign up for any of those presentations, as I said, on our website or via Facebook, I believe. All right, so let's get started on the matter at hand. Let me tell you what an expunction is. An expunction is the means we use to permanently remove an offense from a criminal record. Once someone has been granted an expunction by the court, the public criminal record of the offense is destroyed. At that point, you're within your rights to claim that that offense never took place. There are three primary types of criminal record expunction. One is for charges that are not guilty. Any charge where you're found not guilty by the court is eligible for expunction in North Carolina. Also, all charges that are dismissed, voluntarily dismissed by the court, dismissed without leave, are eligible to be expunged as well. And on that note, North Carolina now does automatic expunction. Any charges that were dismissed after December 1st of 2021 will be automatically expunged 6 months after they are dismissed. So it's not necessary to submit a petition to the court to expunge dismissed charges that were dismissed after December 1st of 2021, unless you wanted to get them expunged faster. That may not always work. Otherwise, the charges will be automatically expunged after 6 months. Now, any charges dismissed prior to that date, December 1st of 2021, do require you to petition the court to have those charges expunged. They will not automatically be expunged. Now, there are also certain convictions that can be eligible for expunction in the state of North Carolina. Not all of them. Um, One main type is youthful convictions. Those are any conviction that you any conviction where the offense took place when you are 16 or 17 years old at the time and before December 1st of 2019 are eligible for expunction for the court. And then excuse me. Sorry about that, y'all. And then adult convictions, there are certain adult convictions, misdemeanor and felony, which are convictions that occurred after you turned 18 years old, or the offense occurred after you were 18 years old. Those may be eligible for expunction, but this is an area where there are some conditions. There are a number of things that can prevent you from being able to expunge adult convictions. One of the main things that will prevent an individual from being able to expunge adult convictions is what type of convictions they are. If you have a conviction of any of the offenses that you see listed on the screen, those will prevent you from being able to expunge that offense and also any other convictions on your record that occurred after you turned 18 years old, any other offenses that occurred after you turned 18 years old. You can see the list here. This list is some of the most common ones. This is by far not a comprehensive list of all of those types of convictions, but these are some of the ones that we see most often. First of all, class A through G felonies. A lot of times these have to do with robbery. They have to do with the sale of drugs. Any conviction that is a class A through G is not eligible for expunction and will prevent you from being able to expunge your convictions. Also, class A1 misdemeanors, such as misdemeanor child abuse. Another one that we see that people sometimes don't realize can be disqualifying is like a domestic violence protective order violation. That can also be disqualifying. Any offense that requires registration on the sex offender registry is disqualifying for the expunction of convictions. Any offense that includes assault as a primary element of the offense, such as assault on a female, as you see here, simple assault, anything like that will disqualify you from being able to expunge your convictions. Any offense involving heroin or crystal meth, whether it be possession or sale, will be disqualifying. And then possession with the intent to sell or deliver cocaine is disqualifying. Simple possession of cocaine is not necessarily disqualifying, but it does depend on what else is on your record. So the process for expunctions, it depends on what type of expunction it is, but there are certain steps that you have to go through to obtain an expunction of any charge. And first, you have to get an accurate and complete copy of your criminal record. This can be one of the most complicated steps. In North Carolina at this time, all counties in North Carolina use one of two systems to keep records of criminal records. One is called Cypress, one is called Portal. You can go to any courthouse in any county in the state of North Carolina and go usually around the clerk's office, the clerk of court's office. There are terminals where you can go and look up your name and obtain a copy of your criminal record. It's very important to make sure when you're obtaining your criminal record that you search in every county and in both systems that you might possibly have had a conviction, because any conviction that you do not find and you do not petition for can become ineligible. Once you have obtained a complete copy of your criminal record, at that point you have to determine your eligibility for expunction. What we would do at legal aid is we would look at all the offenses to be sure that none of them are those disqualifying offenses that I mentioned earlier, to see what age an offender was if there was a conviction when that offense occurred. to see what the disposition of the offense was, whether it was dismissed, whether it was not guilty. By looking at the entire record, that is how you determine your eligibility to expunge the charges that are on your record. Once you have determined your eligibility, then there are different petition forms for different types of offenses. This is one of the more common mistakes that I see when individuals attempt to do their own expunction is not putting the correct type of charge on the correct corresponding type of form. There's certain form for dismissed charges, one for not guilty charges, one for those underage convictions that I was talking about earlier, and one for felonies and one for misdemeanors. There are also so some types of offenses, such as convictions, require more documentation. You might be required to submit an affidavit, just declaring to the court that that you have met all the requirements to be able to expunge your charges. And some petitions require that you have character references, also submit an affidavit just attesting to your good character. Once you have identified the correct form and whether or not you have any have to supply any sort of documentation with that form, you have to find out where you need to submit the form. In the state of North Carolina, it is necessary to submit a separate expunction petition in any county as well as any court in that county that where you have convictions or dismissals. So if you have dismissals in Wake County and Johnston County in both Superior Court and District Court, you would need to submit a petition to expunge those dismissed charges in all of those different courts. So you can't just put everything on one petition. That is important. And once you determine where you need to file the petitions, you need to find out each county's specific process for submitting those petitions and the follow-up process. Every county tends to do things a little bit differently. So it's often necessary to call that county, most of the time the clerk of court's office, to determine what their local procedure is to make sure that the expunction petition will make it to who it needs to make it to be either granted or denied. And then once all of that has taken place and you believe that the expunction process has been completed, as in you have received from the court a copy of that petition that has been granted with a granted order from a judge granting the expunction, it is necessary to then go back and check your criminal record again to be sure that the charge has in fact been removed from your criminal record. This can be a little bit of a process. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I was on the right spot there. This can be a little bit of a process. There are also follow-up processes that you may need to take as far as verifying that your record has been removed from all the areas that it should be removed from, such as the two different criminal record keeping methods that I mentioned earlier that are used by all the counties in North Carolina, and then also the North Carolina Department of Corrections, and then also the State Bureau of Investigation will need to all remove whatever records of those offenses that have been expunged may still be there. So it's often necessary to follow up with those agencies to be sure that they have in fact removed those records. Additionally, there can be issues when one is accessing their record through a private, like a third party record search company, like on the internet, for like something that you would have to pay for, some sort of background check software. There are often times where where those companies use outdated records. So sometimes it is necessary to follow up with those companies to be sure that they have also been removed. The expunged offenses have also been removed from those companies' records. Now, all of these processes together, they do seem a little bit complicated. I know that, and they can be quite complicated. So that is why we often suggest that if you have a lengthy record or a record that contains a number of convictions, that it can be quite necessary to reach out to an attorney to make sure that when you are trying to go through these steps, that you are able to obtain every criminal record and then determine your eligibility correctly and then correctly file these petitions, because it can be quite a big problem when they're filed incorrectly and then you have to kind of go back and retrace your steps. On that note, we do offer to eligible clients that are eligible for our services at Legal Aid, and that is an income based process. We do at the Second Chance Department take on clients and assist them with their criminal record expunction. Right now, we will be accepting some new clients for criminal record expunction and driver's license restoration here at the Second Chance Department at Legal Aid. We will be opening new expunctions and driver's license restoration files during the following weeks for the next few months. We'll be doing that. We're doing that now, February 3rd through February 7th. We will also be opening intake on March 3rd through March 7th and April 7th through April 11th. And when we will be keeping intake open for those weeks, that will be done on a first come, first served basis after clients are determined to be eligible for legal aid services. And then when we have reached the number of clients we are able to take for that month, we will close down intake for that month, and then we will restart the next set of dates that I have listed there. So if you believe that you have a case that you would like to have analyzed by legal aid, by our team, to see what we can do to help you with your criminal record expunction or your driver's license restoration, that would be the dates that you can access those services potentially. On that note, I would be more than happy to take some questions. Again, please do keep them general, as I will not be able to answer specific questions about your situation particularly, but I can answer general questions about the expunction process.
All right, I am seeing one question in the chat right now, and I do see some raised hands. For those of you who have your hands raised, you cannot unmute in this forum. So if you have a question, you need to put that in the chat for the opportunity to have Trina respond to that. Right now, going with the first question that I see here, what happens if someone has a conviction attached to an assault, such as damage of property? Is that something they might be able to get expunged?
If a person if a person has been convicted of an assault based charge, then they will not be eligible to expunge any of their convictions, the assault conviction or any other conviction.
Um, for those of you asking for assistance on how to apply for legal aid, I will put the link to how to apply online, as well as, I don't know if you could flip to the last slide, I think it has the information. Oh, no, it doesn't. Okay. I will just put
Sorry.
our phone, both the phone number and a link to apply for legal aid online into the chat.
Thank you,
Next
Marissa.
question. Yeah, of course. Next question. Can district and superior court charges be listed on the same petition?
No, they cannot. It is necessary if you have charges in both district court and superior court, you will need to submit separate petitions to each of those different courts to have those charges expunged.
Perfect. If someone has PJC, not sure if you know what that means, for larceny
Yes.
for 2014, is that possible to be expunged?
Okay, so I didn't hear your whole question. I
Uh,
can't tell you about a specific PJC. PJC stands for prayer for judgment. As far as expunction is concerned, a prayer for judgment is considered a conviction. And so one would analyze that as to the as the same as the convictions. I think I missed something important when I was
no,
talking
no,
about this
you didn't.
earlier.
I think that was actually the perfect way to respond to that, actually.
Well, I didn't mention in my presentation earlier that there are certain wait period times for different types of convictions. And if you have a number of convictions, if your convictions are eligible, you will have had to have completed a certain period of good behavior, if you will, or a wait period after you've served your sentence on those convictions. I cannot, there are different wait periods or periods of good behavior for all different types of convictions and different numbers of convictions. So I can't really get into how long that would be for any certain person or any certain offense. But for, like I just said, for the purpose of expunction, a prayer for judgment is considered a conviction, and you would need to analyze that the same way you would any other conviction.
Are DWI convictions eligible for expunction after some time period?
They are not. DWI convictions, the way the law is written in North Carolina at this time, are never eligible for expunction.
Okay.
They do not necessarily prevent an individual from being able to expunge other convictions, but the DWI itself is not eligible to be expunged. Whether or not a person could expunge their other convictions would, of course, depend on what other charges were on their criminal record.
Perfect. And so, next question, someone's asking for some clarification. When you say that, an assault charge disqualifies, is that only that assault charge is disqualified for expunction, or everything on that person's record is disqualified because of that assault charge?
Because of the assault charge, every conviction on that person's record would be ineligible, would no longer be eligible for expunction. Any dismissed charges or not guilty charges would still be eligible. However, the no convictions, if you have an assault conviction, will be eligible.
Perfect. Where can someone find the forms to file an expungement? Expunction.
That is a good question. You can get those on the North Carolina AOC website. So that is the Administrative Office of the Courts, and they have a list of the appropriate forms in addition to forms that you can fill out if you meet certain income qualifications to waive the fees for filing the petitions.
Let's see. Uh, I'm assuming this person is saying what happens when when a charge has been declared dismissed after completion of classes and probation, but I guess it's still showing up on the record and it's been more than 6 months. I'm assuming this took place after that change in the law.
Okay, so with this particular type of dismissal, first of all, I can't, again, I do not know exactly what the situation was with this particular charge. However, if a charge is dismissed pursuant to a deferred prosecution agreement, which is possibly what this individual is talking about, then there is a fee to have that charge, to submit a petition to expunge that charge. So I do not believe that charge would be automatically expunged.
Hold on, just trying to get some. Remember, you need to type a question, and please try to keep your questions as general as possible. If someone had multiple misdemeanor charges when they were a minor, can all those charges be expunged, or are there exceptions for misdemeanor charges when you're a minor?
Um, I'm really not sure that I'm going to be able to answer this one. It's going to depend on how old they were when the charge. Juvenile records are treated a little bit differently, and I'm not 100% sure about that. But also, it depends on what the misdemeanors were, when they were, how long it's been. There is that certain type of expunction for for charges when an individual was 16 or 17. But I would really need to know a lot more to answer that question.
That's no problem. If this, I'm just going to read this verbatim. Not really sure if this is a question. If probation was the sentence imposed, and I'm assuming that this person, that probation was, oh, I'm learning how to talk, that probation was violated, when would that time period, I guess if they violated their probation, does a time period for an expunction start when they completed it? Or I'm not sure if anyone can answer that question. I'm not sure that question is quite clear.
No, I think I understand what they're asking.
Mhm.
So the wait period of good behavior for most expunctions starts at the time that the sentence was completed. So if your probation was extended, it would be from the time that the sentence was actually completed. Um, there are there's a few criminal expunctions that start when the conviction happened, but most of the time it is when the sentence or punishment was completed starts the waiting period.
Awesome. Again, to those of you who have your hands raised, you cannot unmute in this forum. If you have a question, you need to type it either in the Q&A box on Zoom or the comment section on Facebook. About how long does the whole process for an expunction take?
Um, okay. This is very, very dependent on where you're filing and how long that county's particular process takes. But it is absolutely not unusual for the process from start to finish to take over a year.
Okay.
Sometimes it can happen much quicker than that, but that's very dependent on where you're filing.
Is there any action that someone needs to take for something that was dismissed that I'm assuming is supposed to be automatically expunged? Is there any other action they need to take at the courthouse for
Um,
automatic expunctions?
for automatic expunctions, charges that were fully dismissed, as in not dismissed pursuant to the deferred prosecution agreement, like I was talking about before, just voluntarily dismissed charges, you should not have to take any other action. If those charges were after December 21st, 2021, they should be automatically expunged after 6 months.
Could you expunge your charges in North Carolina if all those charges or convictions were out of state?
That's kind of an important point. Out of state charges can affect your eligibility for expunction in North Carolina. And you cannot petition in North Carolina to expunge those out of state charges. Additionally, I cannot advise on what a client may or may not be able to do outside of the state of North Carolina, as I only practice in North Carolina and I'm only licensed in North Carolina. So I do not know how to do criminal record expunction in any other states. But like I said, what I can say is that you cannot petition in North Carolina to expunge convictions or dismissals that happened out of state. And it is possible for a criminal record that occurred out of state to affect your eligibility for your expunction in North Carolina.
Will a filed expunction petition, show up on a background check?
It will not. Well, okay, that I can't really answer that question 100%. There are certain entities that can see an expunged charge, such as law enforcement agencies. And I had a slide about that I may have missed. I'm so sorry. But yeah, there are certain entities can see expunctions or charges even after they're expunged, such as law enforcement agencies, probation officers, the prosecutors when they are sentencing in a court. Once a charge has been expunged, the public record search should not show the expunction petition, as everything related to the charge that's been expunged should be removed from the North Carolina criminal record databases as well as the State Bureau of Investigation databases. However, like I was saying before, if you're using a private background check company that sometimes uses out of date records, it is possible for that company to that charge to still be showing up on that company's records. It's very hard to say 100% that it will never show up on anything else. However, once a charge has been expunged, an individual is within their rights to deny that the charge ever happened, unless they are filling out an application for something that specifically says that you have to include expunged charges.
Gotcha. And we have a lot of questions just asking you to clarify the information regarding intake for legal aid's expunction program.
Okay.
If you could just reiterate that, I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I can go over that again. All right. So right now, the Second Chance Project, our department that handles criminal record expunction and driver's license restoration, we are going to have open intake. You can call the helpline in our central intake unit, and you can apply via phone 1 week each month. And for the first quarter of 2025, we will be opening new expunction and driver's license files during February 3rd through 7th. So that's this week. Then again, March 3rd through March 7th. And then again, April 7th through April 11th. And what we are going to do is we are going to, what we're going to do is we're going to take clients up to a certain number who have qualified for our services on a first come first serve basis. Once we reach that number, we will close our intake for that month, and then we will reopen the next week of the intake. And if it's helpful, y'all can go on to let's see, you can go to our program page on the legal aid website, and it has all the information about intake. So that's on the legal aid website, and that is the Second Chance Department, or the Second Chance Project.
I'm gonna try to add that. Right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I did not know how to add that link.
Yeah, I'm adding that direct link to the Second Chance Project right now. I think that's health page.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, okay. If someone sentence was probation and then that was terminated due to them receiving some new charges, but those new charges were subsequently dismissed, when would their waiting period start? Would it start with completion of the probation, I guess, under the previous charge, or would it have to wait until those new charges got dismissed? And that I tried to make it general, but it still might be too specific.
That's a little too specific. The waiting period usually starts, like I said before, at the end of your sentence, but I would need to see more details on that to answer that question correctly.
No problem. Okay. Not seeing any more questions because all of these had to do with the trying to get assistance from legal aid. It's gonna give it a moment here to see if any other questions come in. All right. To the person who has their hand raised, if you have a question, you need to type it in the chat. I'm gonna give it just a moment here. Please be aware we cannot respond to specific questions. Trina, I'm gonna send you this question to see if this might be something you can respond to. So please check your chat. I think it might be a little too specific for this form.
Yeah, I don't know that I understand if those are convictions or dismissals. Yeah, that's a little too specific. I can't analyze that.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Okay. For expunctions intake, do they have to call or can they apply online? Seems to be
I
something.
believe they need to call in for that because they have to
Okay.
go through our intake process to determine their eligibility financially for legal aid. So I believe that and there's some extra questions that have to do with expunction that are involved in our intake process that they would need to complete with our intake specialist.
Okay, perfect. So just to confirm, if you are interested in applying for legal aid services regarding an expunction this week during that open intake, you need to call during the times when intake is open. You cannot apply for this kind of service online, it seems like. So I think those are all the questions that we can respond to here. Everything else I'm seeing, hold on. The number that needs to be called, I posted that in the chat. That number is 1-866-219-5262. Again, that number is 1-866-219-5262. Okay. If someone, oh, okay. Someone in this program is a part of NC Works in Guilford County. They host two expunction days a year where they have at least two attorneys present who can actually help people with paperwork. The next one is in May. And so if they are interested in maybe using that resource, I'm going to put this information into the chat for anyone who is in Guilford County. So that's a nice little resource. I do believe intake is closed for today, so I believe our phone lines are open. I can give you those exact times in just a second. So our phone lines are open 8:30 through 1:30, Monday through Friday, and potentially 5:30 through 8 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays. So right now the phone lines might be closed as it is after 1:30. And so just be prepared to call tomorrow for those who are asking those questions. Okay. Checking on Facebook. Okay. And so as I'm not seeing any other questions for Trina, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you all so much for joining us, with a special thanks to Trina for presenting and for answering all those questions. If you would like to review anything that was discussed today, we have posted a recording of today's event to our Facebook. It will be immediately available. You can access this recording with or without a Facebook account at www.facebook.com/legalaidnc. If you would like to register for one of our other listen and learn programs that Trina mentioned, such as child custody, tenant rights, Social Security disability, you can do so on our website at legalaidnc.org/clinics. Thank you all so much, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.